Oh, the Fish concert and a Dave Matthews concert.
Nobody does better cover songs than Fish.
Oh, absolutely, bro.
They'll launch into like a Led Zeppelin set.
Fish in Hershey.
All right, we got McMullen.
All right, let's go
He's
to John
ready to
McMullen.
go. The people have been waiting.
I know. I'll tell you one guy who never gets deep.
What?
I don't. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time.
I'm low-key.
A guy who's never been low-key faded is the great John McMullen, our NFL insider. John, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Well, as you can tell, we're not even drinking today, and Robin's already used a profanity.
I was going to say, I thought
cursing.
maybe some of the wine was cracked open at this point.
Now, yesterday we did do a beautiful panty dropper rum shot for Harry's birthday as we finish up the month of June. John, do you realize that June is over? This is the last day of June.
Yeah, time flies when you have no sports. It generally flies in general, but I think everybody had a birthday in this month. Everybody on the show.
Yeah.
Only, except Robin. Robin's a December baby. Only the good people in June, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why.
Talent, I like to call it.
No doubt about it. All right, John, the big story to me right now is you got teams like the Jets, Texans, and Bears have stepped up and offered full refunds to season ticket holders who might want to skip the 2020 season. Doesn't that really put the onus on the rest of the teams in the league to follow suit? I mean, why wouldn't you offer that, especially with all the fear about the next wave and all this other stuff? Why not give people a chance to say, you know what, you can keep my money or give it to me now. I'll go with behind door number 3 where the lovely Carol Merrill is standing by.
Yeah, I think ultimately they're going to have to do that. So at some point, whether the timing is different from city to city, it was interesting today because you mentioned some teams, the Eagles deferred payments again. The Steelers, though, are talking about having fans in the stands. So it kind of depends on where you are in the optimism. But certainly I said, starting last week, I don't think there's any doubt that the NFL still wants to start everything, and training camps will ramp up on July 28th, and everything is moving forward to play the games. What has changed is those fans and how many fans are going to be let in, if there are any fans at all. And that's trending in a negative direction, no question about it.
Now, as far as those refunds, I mean, if you're, let's say you're a Jet fan and you just want your money back,
that should always be the case.
Exactly.
Well, but I'm saying rather than just say, yeah, just roll mine over till next year, which I know the team would prefer, do you stay on the list and those are still your tickets, or do you lose the tickets?
Most teams have come out and nobody's going to lose tickets, and that's the right way to do business. I can't imagine, you never say never, because there's always one knucklehead, to use Governor Phil Murphy's term that he's hijacked, but there's always a knucklehead that might go in a different direction. But yeah, I mean, in this type of situation, you gotta not only offer the money back, you gotta say you're not going to lose your place in line. I think that's the right thing to do, and I think the vast majority, hopefully everybody, goes in that direction.
John McMullen now. Of course, the other big story is it's the Zeke thing. Now, you understand Sports Illustrated, and you know Jimmy Traina. You saw the whole thing. Zeke's had a pretty rough year. I mean, he doesn't commit any crimes.
A rough month.
A rough month is for sure. The pool girl gets attacked, sues him allegedly because the dog allegedly bit her.
The Rottweiler.
Rottweiler.
Got the
now
COVID.
You got Jimmy Traina now mad.
He had
the COVID.
too.
He got over that, luckily. And then you got Jimmy Traina saying that basically that Zeke forgets to log off from his Twitch stream and admits to being high on Twitter.
Twitch again.
It was Twitch. High on Twitch.
Yeah.
See what's happening to Twitch? It's been a bad week for Twitch, except on this show. We're the only thing that keeps Twitch going right now. Everybody else is being canceled. Everybody's being fired. We're the only show right now that Twitch. I thought we were supposed to be on the main page for Twitch today, Robin.
No. Starting in August, every Tuesday, we are going to be
What
on
do you mean
the front
August? I can't wait till August. It's supposed to be today, damn it.
No, I never said that.
Well, if they ban enough people, you'll probably get bumped up a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's
Exactly,
true.
yes,
That's true.
exactly right. So all you people on Twitch, do something stupid so that you can get bumped and they'll move us up the food chain. For God's sake.
Well, I think it's interesting with Zeke getting high. Well, first of all, you should log off if you're an athlete. You should have enough sense to realize to not go live in the first place. And I'm sure his agent is constantly trying to beat that into his head. But I find it ironic. Look, under the old CBA, you had to be, the weed testing, marijuana testing was essentially an IQ test. You had one test a year. You knew when it was coming. Ironically, I think that was always a troll from the NFL. It started on April 20th, and all you had to do was pass that one test, and then you were good. You could do whatever you want for the rest of the year. I think a lot of people didn't understand that. Now, under the new CBA, there's nothing. You can smoke it. You might get fined. You're not getting suspended, so it doesn't matter from an NFL standpoint, but from just the fact that he's a public figure, and he's not logging off, and he's talking about that. He looks like an idiot, but it's not going to have any real-world effect from a Cowboys or NFL perspective.
No, of course. It's nobody's – listen, the fact that the player smokes weed, the fact that he doesn't admit that he smoked weed and was threatening to sue Sports Illustrated because faded by everybody's word and everybody who's ever smoked weed. I don't even smoke weed. I know faded means that you're stoned and you smoked weed. Then to say I was drinking, I had a couple of drinks – doesn't that make you look even worse? Why not just say, yeah, I had a couple of, I was smoking. What's the big deal?
Yeah, I think the bigger deal, if there is a deal from, the Cowboys, like I said, they might say, come on, Zeke, just don't go live when you're doing that stuff. But that's it. I mean, that's literally it. Now, when you talk about Ezekiel Elliott, a couple weeks ago, he was talking about HIPAA violations. He's upset about that.
Yep.
Get off social media. You'll clear these things off real quickly.
How many times do I have to tell these people to get off social media?
Yeah, especially if you're an athlete, an entertainer, or you're somebody in that. I mean, don't go live on Twitch. That's pretty easy.
Hey, John, I know you did your piece on PhillyVoice.com this week on Malcolm Jenkins. And, whether to go back and play sports or not, or football in particular. Do you know of any other players since Malcolm came out and said that he may not be that comfortable going back and playing that have come out and agreed with him?
I imagine, if you look at what's going on in the NBA specifically, and to a lesser extent Major League Baseball, there's going to be a few. And it might have something to do with family issues more than issues themselves. I know J.C. Treader, who's the president of the NFLPA, was put out a memo talking about things like sleep apnea, and we know that's been an issue with NFL players, offensive linemen specifically. So there might be a few concerned about their own well-being. I think more it's going to be about if they have family members that have issues, underlying issues that could be affected by weaker immune systems. So I do expect, look, there's 90 players on these off-season rosters. Somebody's going to bail. I don't think there's any question about that. The question is how many, and I don't think it's going to be a ton, only for the reason, you follow the money in all these things. So these guys make a lot of money, and there's a short shelf to do that. And if they're able to do it, I think most of them are going to continue to do it. And that's kind of what I wrote on Philly Voice. This is a cost-benefit analysis to play in the NFL to begin with. It is a vicious sport. It is difficult on your body, your health. We talk about head trauma all the time. CTE, dementia. These are all things NFL players risk. Are they going to risk something with a .04 death rate in their age bracket? I think the majority is.
John, we're seeing a lot of players from different teams get together down in Florida and work out. We saw yesterday, even though they're on the same team, Deshaun Jackson's been down there working out for a while down in the Tampa area. And then there's players from other teams working out. Does the league have a problem with that? These guys are not breaking any protocol. They're out working on a field. What's the rules? What are the rules, if there are any, on guys working out with players from other teams?
No, there's no rules, but I think the NFLPA, I just mentioned, they're more upset about it than anything else because they're in negotiations right now when we talk about the protocols that you've seen leaked from the NFL. Those are not official yet because those have to be all approved by the NFLPA. So when everybody started to work out together and you saw all these videos, as you mentioned, on social media, and there's no social distancing, and you see the spike in cases, and everybody's talking about athletes testing positive, the NFLPA gently nudged players and said, look, we don't advocate you working out until we get to training camp for that reason. But they can do what they want. And one of the follies of this whole thing when you talk about this back and forth is the assumption by a small group of people that everybody was paying attention to these rules to begin with.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's flawed. It never existed. So you're building an opinion on a foundation that doesn't exist. And until people admit that to themselves, we got issues.
And by the way, the rules are changing every day in every state. And so these players are, most of them are working out in Florida, fortunately, but a lot of them aren't. You have Arizona, and then you get a spike.
Some in Texas, too.
Some in Texas.
Take New Jersey, my home state, is the perfect example. I think New York as well. They have these new travel restrictions that if you're coming into the state, you're supposed to be self-quarantined. I think it's 14 states or something. You think those people are looking at this? Say, I better self-quarantine if I'm coming in.
No.
I mean, it's silly. It really is.
It's just grandstanding by these governors.
Well, yeah,
Really?
that's what they're
Exactly.
supposed to do. But the CDC side, I saw the list, John, what you're talking about with DeMar Smith and how the NFL players is instructing players to take it easy, as you mentioned earlier, and the CDC guidelines. Some of them make sense. I mean, obviously, if you have chronic kidney disease, COPD, immunocompromised state, weakened immune system, BMI of over 30 or higher. Who has a BMI over 30 in the NFL?
Maybe some offensive linemen, possibly.
Maybe very few. Maybe one could be but not. I mean, I think back in the old days there was more of that.
Yeah.
But I think now, even offensive linemen, they're in better shape than that. But I do think, like Treader himself is an offensive lineman. He's a center with the Cleveland Browns, and he mentioned sleep apnea because that's been an issue for years with NFL players, and that could affect. But I think that'll be a very small portion of players that would potentially opt out. The NFLPA doesn't want guys working out, not because of health reasons much, but because they're still negotiating the protocols with the NFL, and they don't want things to be derailed in that goal, and that's sort of why they told them to please beg off, but nobody is. They're continuing to work out because they want to get ready for the season.
All right, John, I'll ask you the same question that I've been asking everybody, whether it's the NBA, hockey, because hockey's not going to go to Vegas now, apparently, because of the concerns there. Will there be a football season? Will it start on time, and will there be a season?
There will be a season. 95% it will start on time. Worst case scenario, after the election in November, because everything changes then, no matter who wins. It becomes a necessity to get the economy started. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting to that point saying the NFL should just hold off until November, and then it'll go unfettered.
Well, you were saying a little while ago that the Steelers are a team that's planning to have fans in the stadium. Is that going to be left up to the individual franchises, or depending on what their states allow, or is the NFL going to come out with their own, sort of mandate?
Yeah, well, the NFL has no control over that, and that's the problem. That's one of the problems. It is state and local government, and there's no way the NFL could override that. So it's going to be, and that's part of the problem. And we talked about that from the beginning, especially when you talk about, earlier in the process, the Giants and Jets, when we're talking about opening facilities for interest. Mm-hmm. Instance, it was going to be more difficult for them than, say, the Kansas City Chiefs in the middle of the country. And I think that is the same thing going on with tickets and fans. There are going to be certain areas of the country where it's going to be easier to accomplish than other areas, and that's part of the problem the NFL is dealing with, and it's a big problem.
John McMullen joining us, our NFL insider. All right, so what's next that we should be looking at? We're going into a holiday weekend soon. A lot of people are mailing it in already because they want to get away, get out of their respective cities, go somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
And they thought they could go out to dinner, but not anymore.
No, you can't go out to dinner. You can't do anything, John.
Yeah, well, everybody, again, everything changes. Think about the beginning of this week, beginning of last week to right now, and think about how many things have changed. Well, that's going to happen in the next week and the next week. So all you can do, and coaches talk about this all the time, is control what you can control, and the NFL is trying to do that. July 28th is when training camps are set to open. They're going to scale back. They haven't done it yet, but I mentioned on the show it's going to be 2 preseason games, 1 home game, 1 road game to get this thing sort of have a dry run as a host and as a visitor. And then they're going to kick off. And we'll see how things go from there. But as we see, I mean, Dr. Fauci was out there again talking about 100,000 cases a day, and I don't know. There's a lot of doom and gloom. I wish I could tell you concrete, but it's not trending in a positive direction.
What's next on the Extending the Play podcast with you and Ryan Rothstein?
Is he still on it, by the way? Have you fired him yet, or is he still available
I have
for that?
not fired Ryan. Have you guys fired Ryan?
No, we haven't fired Ryan. We have not fired Ryan. We almost fired Colin Farrell today, though.
Oh, what did Colin?
No, he's
Conlon?
just
lack of mic technique.
Yeah, he's got bad mic technique.
Yeah, but
and we
Totally
gave up
not-
love to.
And it's not completely his fault, though.
No,
too.
it's not his fault. It's a faulty mic.
Well, I'm just glad Tony called him Colin Farrell instead of Colin Thompson.
I know. I finally got over that because he's sitting right in front of me now, so I have to look at him so I don't mess up.
But Rothstein forced NBA discussion on us today.
Yes, he did.
More than normal.
We had more NBA.
guy.
We had more NBA
I'm
talk
interested
today
to see-
than NBA TV has had in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. And well, that's what we're going to do on the podcast. I want to see what Ryan's social justice message on his jersey is going to be when the NBA kicks off.
It's going to be something about Ben Simmons' inability to shoot a jump shot, I think.
What is it? Jump shots matter? What is this?
Oh, come on,
Come on, man.
Don't start that stuff on this show.
Harry.
By the way, you were talking about.
Cancel culture.
Yes.
Harry.
By the way, you're talking about changing stuff. You know how nobody knows what they're doing. In Philadelphia today, the city paused its reopening plans, and now we're only in a modified green phase.
Modified green.
Modified.
That's not like the modified Stapleford system or a Stapleford golf
That's
thing.
the scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the city has also issued a travel advisory for 15 states across the country. So now, before I go away for the weekend, I need to find out which 15 states I can't go to as I leave the Pennsylvania and New Jersey, the two states two states that I don't want to go, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I got to figure out what states I can't go to.
So, in other words, if you went to the wrong state and then tried to come back, you could be in violation.
Exactly right.
Right.
And especially, I think the traffic lights are going to be modified green as well, which I don't know how that works.
So here's
They
the
might
deal.
pull you over.
To the 14 states, so people returning to Philadelphia from any of these 14 states need to self-quarantine for 14 days.
For 2 weeks, yeah.
So if I go to another state, which I'm not allowed to, I can't do a show for 2 weeks.
That's what I'm saying.
Do I have to be like Fredo Cuomo and go in the basement?
In the basement.
and
We're already
pretend I'm
in the basement.
Pretending I'm working out and sweating
That's
and
what
going
I was
outside.
talking about. It's the honor system. You have to do it. You have to do it. And they're going to assume you do it. And everything's going to be based off that assumption.
Now, are they going to do this contact tracing where they can follow your phone, and then if they find out that you lied, are you then going to be fined?
I mean, the hypocrisy in this country is pretty astounding.
By the way, here's the
people.
best part of this. Here's one thing that cannot work. Casinos will be allowed to open during this restricted green phase, but only with very strict requirements. Masks are required. I understand that. 6 feet apart. But absolutely no food, drink, or smoking is allowed indoors. So you're in a casino.
You're not allowed to eat.
Gambling. You're not allowed to
eat
drink,
or drink in a casino.
drink, or eat or smoke, which is like half of the stinking slot machine players are smoking like chimneys.
Right.
So they're basically telling casinos,
You can open, but
Yeah,
nobody's going to come.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Wow.
What kind of dregs a society are coming in to actually just gamble with no alcohol?
Oh, you're right about
no
that.
food.
Wow.
That's gonna be the true diehard.
Wow.
Exactly right. I'm going to have to self-quarantine.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're in the wine cellar anyway.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
you just got to kick Harry Conlon and Ryan out.
Exactly
All
right.
right.
Self-quarantine.
And don't forget Hunter
Okay.
Brody, too. Did you give Hunter Brody some love? He announced his engagement
I
today.
did. I congratulated Hunter on his pending nuptials. And that's interesting. Colin, I'll bring up Colin again. He just got engaged.
What's going on with these people? Don't they understand? Haven't they listened to me?
I mean,
I'm trying to save America here. Just
I
kidding.
think we all are, but we're all. I'm already married, so I can't go down that route.
Exactly right.
at JF McMullen on Twitter.
Exactly. John, have a good week, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
You two guys, happy 4th of July to you.
Exactly right. You can't say that anymore, though.
Half of 2020's over, John.
It's a final.
Happy Independence Day.
Exactly right. Not the movie, the real one.